addition to being, a guest, I wanted you here because of your activism and your knowledgeable, just being knowledgeable about this whole issue surrounding the U.S. trademark trial and the Washington Redskins name. Can you, for people who haven't been following this story, can you just give them a little bit of, the background to what's been going on?
Well, what's in the news now is simply that the Dan Snyder has lost his trademark protection for six trademarks. He lost, and most of them surround the word Redskin. Mm-hmm. It's not the first time the Washington football team has been down this road. Suzanne Harjo, initially she had done a similar suit, but they basically dismissed it on a technicality. They said that she was essentially too old to bring the case.
Yeah, I read something about that. Is ridiculous. Like, if crime or if some bad thing happens, there's a statute of limitations, and then I guess it's not a thing anymore. How is that? I don't really get that.
60.
Exactly.
Well, see, that's the way they said she had to do it closer to her 18th birthday when she was legally old enough to have brought a case. Otherwise, and so after her case kind of and it was
so the idea here is that the term Redskin is a racial slur, and that when applied to and or around children, it hurts them. So when she hit 18, once she got past a certain number of years past 18, they said, well, she's not a child anymore. She can't be hurt.
No, that's not it. What it is they said once she was 18, the clock starts ticking on how many years she has to bring the case before this concept of latches comes in. Once so many years have transpired, it has nothing to do with her being a child. They said, but once you're 18, you are an adult and you have a certain number of years to bring a case. Otherwise, you let it go too long to bring it now.
Wait, but the idea is she was hurt as a child by this name. Is
that
right?
No.
I don't get it.
No, it has nothing to do with being a child. Although it does hurt children. The issue is that it's a statute of limitations. So as soon as a person turns 18, they have a certain number of years to bring the complaint. Otherwise, and so when they did it again, Suzanne had
kids.
worked. Well, they tried to get some folks who were from 18 to 24 years old because that was young enough, they thought, and that's where this case has had success now.
Now, the thing that I think is interesting about this is that, you hear all these talking points. Oh, the government is interfering and the government is trying to tell us tell business what they can and cannot do. And I didn't really see that. What I'm seeing is that government is using its trademark laws to try to make a fair playing field for all participants, including Native Americans, right? So you don't really say, am I wrong here?
No.
Correct me.
Well,
I might be.
Well, kind of here's the deal. You've got NFL franchise or sports franchises, especially pro franchises, that get all kinds of tax advantages for their stadiums and that kind of stuff. And then in this situation, you actually have a provision of federal law that protects a copyright for somebody to make profit off of. Now, it's stipulated within the trademark laws that you cannot copyright or trademark something that is offensive and that is meant to that's derogatory. So it's clear that this was one of those situations. So when Dan Snyder loses his trademark protection, he's not being told he can't use it.
Yeah,
what they're saying is you're not going to be protected by federal law to make money off of this name. So now
anybody with a press machine, a stamp machine, can go make a Redskins thing and sell.
Well, now even Indians can be Redskins again.
Right. You can take back the night if you want to.
I'm not sure I like that.
I heard of another Native American speaker say that Indians never call themselves Redskins. It's not a name that it's a slur in any capacity.
Let's be clear where it comes from. The word comes from the bounty for scalping Native people.
That's nice.
And it was published that that the United States was paying $200. And I saw one of the documents, and they're paying up to $200 for a red skin. And what it was, it's a blood-soaked scalp from a Native person, which is proof that they were killed. And it was even they even priced it differently for men, women, and children, because you wouldn't get as much for a child, a red skin from a child, a Native child, or from a woman as you would from a man. So
always the women are worth 33% less for some reason.
Well, and this is where one of my suggestions for the new team name comes from.
Oh, you have suggestions for the new team name?
Yes, I have a couple.
Okay.
One of them is that if Dan Snyder is that committed to blood-soaked skin, for his team name, then why not call them the Washington Foreskins?
Hey, that is gross, and I loved it.
Yeah, well, because there's even a Jewish component to it, right? Because
If we're
he's
gonna
Jewish.
be racist, yeah.
And-
They're saying the first guy, the guy who originally started with the name, had what 1/16 Native American or
That's
his
not
grandmother. Or
true.
something.
Yeah, that wasn't true.
Oh,
That-
yeah, that's what
all-
they're saying.
yeah.
Actually, I want to play a clip from Meet the Press. They spoke about this issue this weekend at Meet the Press, and let's hear what
the 1930s. It was actually devised by players on the team at the time to honor their then Native American coach, Lone Star Dietz. It was
Okay, so here's a question. In the 1930s is when they came up with this name, when it was still okay to call a black person darky and WAP was okay for Italians. I mean, maybe it wasn't okay, but I think those things are all sort of in the same boat. But you don't, I'm sure this point has been made, but you don't see any teams.
Lone Star Dietz was German, by the way. He wasn't
Yeah.
native. And this was not devised by the players. This had to do with moving the team from Boston to Washington.
Yeah, south of the Mason, as close to the Mason-Dixon
It
line
had nothing
as
to do with any of that. That stuff is all, and it's all been debunked anyway. And yet there's still people, just like
people on Meet the Press, the main news network for, one of the main talking. Let's play a little bit more of that clip.
not intended to offend now.
We know that many fans don't intend any harm by this name, but you can't just simply say that simply because I intend not to do a harm, that a harm isn't occurring.
Okay, so here's my thought about this. I don't think football fans are necessarily the kind of people. This is not a democracy where we vote on what's a slur and what's not a slur. And if we were going to have our public policy voted on by the fans of a team sport, is that a great idea? It doesn't seem like a terrific idea to just leave it to the fans.
You call a number like American Idol? How does that work?
Now this guy, Now this guy who was speaking there, his name is
Ray Hallbritter.
Yeah, Ray Hallbritter. I understand that you're on the record saying you're not a big fan of Ray Hallbritter. Ray is an Oneida Indian Nation representative. What's your beef with Ray?
Well, he's an illegitimate. He's kind of self-proclaimed. The only reason he is where he is because he pulled a fast one with the Bureau of Indian Affairs to get himself federally recognized as the leader
an Indian?
of the Oneidas. As the leader of the Oneidas. He pulled it over with even with guys like Oren Lyons and the guys from Onondaga from the Grand Council.
So wait a minute. So this guy went outside of the Oneida Nation, which is his own nation, to say someone else has to tell me I'm a leader. That would be like the United States, whoever's running for president, being like, okay, the UN should tell us who should be our leader.
And that's kind of what he did. He went to the Confederacy to try to get some sort of sanction for him to be the leadership when there were actually condoled Oneida, for lack of a better word, chiefs already in place. So he's kind of a fraudulent person in the first place. And this whole thing, he bought his way into this conversation on the Redskins. Now, I'm not saying what he's saying is wrong, but it's not like he's consulted. My wife and children are Oneida, so I know that he's not.
He didn't call?
Yeah, he did.
You didn't get
the phone didn't ring.
You've been waiting by the phone.
Yeah, it's not like he's checked with Oneida to say, look, how do you feel about this? He's trying to. He screwed up Oneida land claims and did all kinds of other things that have really been detrimental to the United people. And here he's trying to remake himself, and it's kind of a publicity stunt.
Are the things that he's saying, though, are they in line with sort of what American Indians believe about this issue?
Well, he only goes so far with the conversation. He usually stops at saying the dictionary defines it as a slur, and he can't go much beyond that in his conversation.
What would you say? Yeah.
Well, here's the problem that I have. This isn't just about the Washington Redskins, R words or whatever, or the Kansas City Chiefs or the Atlanta Braves.
I came from a college upstate New York that had the worst name. It was called the Colgate Red Raiders.
Yeah.
Why don't you just call your team like the Murderers or the Colgate Genocide?
There are those that use savage and all that stuff. But
right.
See, for me,
have not evolved very far.
The beauty of having the Washington football team have this derogatory name is that it's the nation's capital.
Yes, Washington.
And I think that this thing is emblematic of policies of the United States. This is about racism. This isn't about inappropriate or a misappropriation of native culture. It is that, but it's not just that. We have a problem that most Americans have already kind of put us into the past, like we don't exist anymore. So there's a racism that exists towards Native people that is unique in all of the land, so to speak. And when 50 senators sign a document and they point to Dan Snyder, say you should change the name, or they send a letter to Roger Goodell, my problem is why don't you 50 senators change some of the policies that affect Native people every single day, not just go after this guy? There's a certain hypocrisy in that.
So what John is talking about is in May, 50 Democratic senators sent letters to the NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, as well as Dan Snyder, the owner of the Redskins, asking them to consider changing the name. I mean, so you're saying that it's basically a publicity stunt that these 50 senators put their names on something that's not going to really have any strong impact on the lives of Native Americans.
Well, if in that letter they took some responsibility for their bad policies, then I would feel completely different about it. If it's saying, look, Native people have been treated badly, there have been crimes committed by this government against them, and those crimes are kind of made okay within the eyes of the American public with names like the Washington Redskins or the Cleveland Indians cartoon or whatever.
So opponents of this issue who are saying things like, well, if it's not a big deal that the name is just a name is a name, if it's really about policy, then why can't we keep the name?
Well, you know what? I'm one of those people who say, let's keep the name until we affect policy. Because
my thought was, let's keep the name.
I want to keep being able to point to it and say, look, this is how bad things are in the United States. That the American public, and frankly, until the American public really stand behind this, I don't want to see this thing outlawed. I don't want to see Congress strip them of the name. I want to see Roger Goodell or whoever comes after Roger Goodell say, you know what, we were wrong. We should have changed this name. I don't want these guys saying, okay, we had to change the name because the trademark office or because the president or because of Congress. Well, I want them to change the name because they come to the realization that it is racist and that there is still racist policies in the United States towards Native people.
And that they actually apologize.
Yeah, they generally come to the conclusion.
A lot of minority groups are waiting for an apology. I mean, we're going to wait till the rest of our lives. So my thought is, well, let's use these trade sanctions. Okay, they can keep the trademark, but any profit they make has to go back into supporting Native American peoples.
I mean, but Snyder's trying to throw money at the problem, and that doesn't make it go away. The problem is, you try bringing a 7-year-old child to a Florida State Seminoles game or a Washington Redskins game, who's a native kid who's got to see 30,000 people with face paint on, or go to a Cleveland and see some guy with red face. I mean, they don't let people show up in blackface at these things, or
That's true.
But you can show up in red face and feathers and make a mockery of this thing. There's a guy from Philadelphia who used to go to when the Eagles would play the Redskins. He had a rubber head that he put blood around the edge of the neck where it was decapitated. He shoved a sword through the side of the head.
Yikes.
Put war paint and a headdress on his head, and then across the forehead and cheek he said, "Redskin, dead skin." He would go into as a Philadelphia
That's
Eagles
terrifying.
fan.
Especially as a child, if you're not aware yet that the boundary between fandom and actual hate or whatever.
And the crowd supported it. They all thought this guy was great.
Yeah.
They'd put him on camera.
Anywhere but in a sports arena, that would be a hate crime.
Yes.
I guarantee
anywhere but in a sports
if
arena.
he showed
that's
up
a
with
good
Robert
point,
Griffin III's head or a likeness of his head in a noose, I guarantee it would not have been acceptable. So, but it's acceptable when it's a native head, and it went beyond the Redskins because when the Philadelphia Flyers played the Blackhawks in hockey last year, he showed up at a playoff game, and the Versus Sports Network zoomed in on him and used him as the background graphic to go to commercial and put the score up. So they actually televised the guy.
So if I'm getting this correct, you are attacking this on both fronts. One, the word itself is problematic. The name itself is problematic, but the problem goes beyond just the name. It's really about the policies of the government toward a people that they slaughter, I guess would be the appropriate word, especially since we're on WBAI and we don't have to clean it up. We don't have to be corporate appropriate on WBAI.
We still have really, really bad policies in the United States towards Native people. There still is this idea that somehow we are subordinate to the laws of the United States, even though many of us still maintain a strong belief and conviction in our own sovereignty. So this stuff, we still feel strongly about that. But at the same time, you've got this mascot issue that kind of desensitizes the American public to thinking that we are somehow just a relic of the past, and that they can heroize an image they have of us. At the same time, condemn us. The only thing that they're offended by is the fact that we're offended.
That's interesting. If you brought an African American, like a blow up doll or a mannequin or something of an African American hanging from a tree limb, everyone would be, hopefully, I hope to God, everyone would be absolutely appalled. But to have a mock-up of a body that has Redskin impaled with its head cut off. We're talking about, that's the same kind of tactics that they use in Middle Eastern countries to show their disdain for George W. Bush or
burning
some of
effigies
our.
and that kind of stuff. Sure.
Yeah.
Last fall, and I want to mention this. Last fall, 4 separate high schools who went into the playoffs during November, which happens to be Native American Heritage Month, I might add. They were playing teams called Indians, Savages, Warriors, and 4 high school teams put banners up that said to their opponent, "Get ready for another trail of tears." So that's how pervasive this kind of thing and a sentiment. That's like telling a team that might be predominantly Jewish to get ready to jump on the train to Auschwitz.
Yeah. Oh my God. Is that our actual choo-choo sound effect? Do we have a choo-choo sound effect? That is really shocking. Here's a true fact. There used to be a minor league baseball team named the Atlanta Crackers. And I'm like, wow, finally a baseball team named after its fan base. This is perfect. But also true, this is during the 1920s, an African-American league called Negro League at that time, team played in the same ballpark, and their name was the Atlanta Black Crackers, which is the only time in history a team has been simultaneously been the symbol of segregation and affirmative action run amok all at the same exact time. I mean, we're laughing about this stuff, but it's really not, it's not too funny. It's not super funny to think about. I mean, it's not funny at all, but it is kind of funny when you go out there with this in mind. Over the past week, I've been out there thinking about there's a lot of products that if you read them wrong, they sound a little bit like they're using racial slurs. My favorite is, do you remember these cheese nips? I don't think Japanese Americans would be so happy to have a cheese cracker product called, Nips, Spick and Span.
No.
The cleaning supplies.
Yeah.
Aunt Jemima, that's not. I mean, they used to call people Aunt Jemima when they were, making a racial slur. Now we have a syrup that is sweet and
Just celebrate
not
that slur. Yes.
Yes, celebrating Fruit Loops. Should definitely be named homosexual loops. Come on, we gotta stick with the times. You said you had other names.
Yeah, I've got another one.
Yeah,
I want to hear. My other one is since team names are all supposed to be about dominance and superiority, why not the Washington Aryans? Because if you had a team, the Washington Aryans, the fans could
the guy was German who started the team. This is perfect.
And the fans could call themselves the Aryan Nation. The team players can call each other the Aryan Brotherhood. They could have other network, their local access. They could have Aryan Nation TV, and the fact that you've got.
I'm surprised they don't have that already.
Yeah, well, and
trademark.
You could have a skinhead be the mascot, one of those overhead skinheads, that runs out on the field. I mean,
my God! With an axe.
I mean, because it's about supremacy, right, and superiority. That's what
racist
sports
against racists, right there. So.
Well, and who? But that's not an offensive word, right?
No.
Okay, all right, just checking.
There's other team names that reference Native Americans, the Cleveland Indians, the Kansas City Chiefs. Why is it that the Washington Redskins are at the center of this controversy and not some of the other?
They're the worst. I mean,
Redskin is a racial slur.
Because the word is a derogatory word. The use of Native mascots is wrong in of itself. Also, and of course, the Cleveland Indians is one of the worst ones because their logo is such a cartoonish character. It's derogatory in of itself. You go to their season opener, and there's all these people that are in red face, dressed up, made up like the Cleveland, like Chief Wahoo from the Cleveland Indians. So it's. So the Redskins are the worst because the name is derogatory in itself. But it's all wrong. It's all wrong.
On your blog, Let's Talk Native, you said change the name or end the genocide, in which you said that they should change the name, but not for the sake of throwing us a bone. I think were the words that you used. What are the other things that what are the other things that you think should be done?
Well, first off, there have been billions of acres of land that were unlawfully ceded, or they were not legitimately ceded, and
they're not going to give you back them all. You know what I mean? Everything's.
But here's the thing. The United States is in clear violation of the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People. They they only accepted it almost conditionally. Like they said, well, we'll support the aspirations of the agreement to the extent that it doesn't violate U.S. law. The problem is the United States violates this international declaration on what should be the minimum standard for Native issues, and there's just so much that the United States has not ever made right in terms of health issues, healthcare issues, land claim settlements. There's billions and billions of dollars of assets that the United States has mismanaged, and frankly, just the plain and simple recognition of our sovereignty. We cannot conduct trade native territory to native territory without the federal government and the state governments trying to interfere with that. So just
well,
basically
the libertarians
respecting.
should be on your side.
Of
Which
course,
part,
of course they
any,
aren't.
Are there any? Of course they are. I find it interesting that Rand Paul gets to go on Meet the Press and discuss being anti-war, but yet he's the you listen to him and he sounds kind of good. You're like, yeah, I think we should. Yeah, I agree. He didn't bash the president, and he said, I think we're all doing a good job. But you never have like a Democrat who's anti-war. You never really have like a really left-leaning person on Meet the Press who says, I'm anti-war and I'd like to preserve the social safety net. You have libertarians who say, I'm anti-war and I'd like to cut all services to anyone who might need anything.
I'm anti-war, not because I like peace, but because we can't afford it.
Yeah, exactly. Join us tomorrow, 6 to 7 p.m. Monday through Thursday.